The pain, no matter how uncomfortable it may be, is not our enemy. In fact, it can be one of the best teachers we encounter in life. Think of it as a warning signal, a way for the universe to tell us that something needs to change. The ancient Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, already knew this. Adversity doesn't exist to destroy us, but to reveal our inner strength and promote growth. It's as if every challenge were a disguised opportunity. When we face difficulties, we have two choices: to succumb or to learn. Epictetus, another great Stoic philosopher, used to say that it's not the events that define us, but how we react to them. For example, imagine losing a job, something many would consider devastating. However, that same situation can be seen as a chance to rethink your trajectory, acquire new skills, or even completely change careers. Suffering only occurs when we resist what is already real. And here's something to reflect on. Would you be where you are today without the lessons learned from difficult situations? Probably not. Every pain, every adversity shapes who we are and prepares us for the next challenge. The key lies in reinterpreting these experiences, transforming them into fuel for progress. This doesn't mean ignoring the pain, but rather recognizing its role as a catalyst for change. After all, it's in the fire of difficulties that steel is forged, and we as human beings are no different. But how do we apply this in practice? A good way is to start observing your reactions to challenges. When something goes wrong, instead of blaming the world or falling into the trap of unnecessary suffering, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? This simple exercise completely shifts perspective and helps you see pain as an ally, not an enemy. Books like Meditations by Marcus Aurelius can be great guides for those who want to dive deeper into this philosophy. Finally, remember that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. When we accept that life is made up of highs and lows, we begin to see each obstacle as an opportunity for growth. And if you're still thinking about how to deal with daily adversities, don't worry, this is just the beginning. In the next sections, we'll explore how control over our choices can help us face any situation with more focus and motivation. One of the greatest lessons of Stoicism is understanding the difference between what we can control and what is beyond our reach. Epictetus made this clear when he said that we worry so much about external events, like the weather, the economy, or other people's opinions, that we forget to focus on what truly matters: our reactions and choices. After all, it's pointless to waste energy trying to change what has already happened or control what is out of our hands. That only leads to more suffering. On the other hand, when we direct our attention to what we can influence, such as our attitudes and thoughts, we gain power over our lives. Imagine you're stuck in traffic. Getting angry and honking won't make the cars move faster, but choosing to listen to relaxing music or using the time to reflect can transform that experience. The control lies in how you decide to handle the situation, and that choice makes all the difference in your well-being. Accepting the flow of life is essential for cultivating wisdom. This doesn't mean being passive or resigned, but rather recognizing that some things are beyond our power. For example, if a friend disappoints you, you can't control their actions, but you can choose how to react, with anger or with understanding. This shift in perspective frees your mind to focus on what really matters, promoting evolution and resilience. To practice this principle, try to identify daily what is within your control and what isn't. When something goes wrong, ask yourself, does this depend on me? If the answer is no, let go of the emotional weight and move on. If it's yes, focus your energy on acting positively. A practical exercise is to create a list divided into two columns: I can control and I cannot control. This simple habit can help clarify your mind and strengthen your focus. In the end, control over our choices is the greatest power we have. By accepting what we cannot change and acting wisely on what is within our reach, we begin to live more lightly and intentionally. But how do we avoid falling into the trap of suffering twice for the same problem? This question brings us to the next point: learning not to feed negative thoughts about the past or future. Suffering for what has already happened is a choice many of us make without realizing it. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, warned us about this trap. When something bad happens, we feel pain from the situation itself, but then we prolong that suffering by reliving the event repeatedly in our minds. It's as if we're paying an emotional price twice, first for the actual event and then for the stories we tell ourselves. What if we could avoid this second round of pain? The key to escaping this cycle lies in recognizing that the past is gone and cannot be changed. Of course, it's natural to feel sadness or frustration in the face of loss or mistakes, but dwelling on those feelings for weeks, months, or even years only keeps us trapped in suffering. For example, imagine someone who lost a job opportunity. The moment of rejection might hurt, but the real weight comes when that person spends entire nights ruminating on, what if I had done things differently? This doesn't change the outcome, it only steals your peace. To avoid suffering twice, we need to learn to let go of negative thoughts about what has already happened. A powerful technique is practicing emotional detachment, something Epictetus strongly advocated. When you notice your mind drifting back to the past, gently bring it back to the present. Ask yourself, will what I'm thinking about change what happened? Probably not. So why keep carrying that burden? Another practical way to deal with this is to replace negative thoughts with constructive reflections. Instead of focusing on what went wrong, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Or how can I use this experience to grow? This small adjustment in thinking transforms suffering into wisdom and opens space for new possibilities. Books like the Manual of Epictetus can be great allies on this journey of mental transformation. Finally, remember that the future can also be a source of unnecessary suffering if we start creating catastrophic scenarios in our heads. Worrying about what hasn't happened yet is like paying interest in advance on a debt that might not even exist. Instead, focus on the present and the actions you can take today to build a better tomorrow. This preoccupation with the future distracts us from the present moment, where we can actually act to change our reality. But how do we face the challenges of the present with strength and resilience? This question brings us to the next point, the strength we find in facing adversity. Adversity is like a tough coach who doesn't accept excuses. It pushes us out of our comfort zone and forces us to give our best. The Stoics understood this very well. Marcus Aurelius, for example, used to say that obstacles are the paths to growth. When we face difficulties, we have two options, to run from them or to confront them head-on. And those who choose the latter discover an inner strength they didn't know they had. Discomfort, as unpleasant as it may be, is essential for building resilience. Imagine someone who has never faced a significant challenge in life. That person will likely be fragile when real difficulties arise. On the other hand, someone who learns to deal with adversity early on develops emotional resistance that helps them overcome anything. It's like exercising a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And adversity is the gym where we train our inner strength. But here's an important point. Facing difficulties doesn't mean ignoring the pain or pretending everything is fine. On the contrary, it means acknowledging the pain and deciding to act anyway. For example, imagine someone who has lost a loved one. Grief is real and painful, but channeling that pain into something productive, like helping others going through the same situation, can give purpose and transform pain into progress. That's the power of adversity when we face it with courage. To practice this principle in daily life, start small. Put yourself in situations that slightly push you out of your comfort zone, like speaking in public if that scares you, or taking on a new responsibility at work. Each small victory builds confidence and prepares you for bigger challenges. Also, remember that growth often comes with discomfort. Books like Letters to Lucilius by Seneca can be great inspirations for those who want to learn how to better handle adversity. Ultimately, adversity is not something to be avoided but embraced as part of the personal transformation process. Those who face challenges with focus and motivation emerge stronger on the other side. But how do we reinterpret our personal stories to transform suffering into learning? This question brings us to the next point, the power of changing the meaning we give to events. The meaning we assign to events completely shapes our perception and reaction to them. The Stoics knew this better than anyone. It's not the events themselves that affect us, but the narrative we create around them. For example, losing a job can be seen as a tragedy or as an opportunity for a fresh start. It all depends on how you choose to interpret that experience. And that choice is in your hands. Reinterpreting personal stories is a powerful skill that can transform suffering into growth. Imagine someone who faced a business failure. Instead of seeing themselves as a failure, that person can view the episode as a valuable lesson in financial management or customer relationships. By changing the narrative, they not only alleviate the emotional weight but also open space for new possibilities. As Epictetus said, it's not things that disturb us but our opinions about them. But how do we do this in practice? A good starting point is questioning the automatic stories your mind creates. When something goes wrong, ask yourself, is this interpretation really true? Is there another way to see this situation? For example, if you're criticized at work, instead of thinking, I'm incompetent, try viewing it as constructive feedback to improve. This simple shift in perspective can make all the difference in your mental state and progress. Another useful technique is to write down your difficult experiences and reinterpret them on paper. Grab a notebook and describe the event, but add a new version of it, one that highlights the lesson learned or the positive side. This helps solidify this new narrative in your mind. Additionally, seeking inspiration from figures like Marcus Aurelius can provide a great boost. He himself transformed years of political and personal difficulties into profound reflections that we now find in meditations. Finally, remember that reinterpreting personal stories doesn't mean ignoring the pain or pretending everything is perfect. On the contrary, it's about recognizing reality but choosing to give it a new meaning that strengthens you. By doing this, you not only overcome the past but also prepare yourself to face the future with more wisdom and motivation. But how do we let go of what no longer serves our path? This question brings us to the next point: detachment and the freedom it brings. Detachment is one of the most liberating lessons of Stoicism. It doesn't mean abandoning everything we have or becoming indifferent to the world, but rather learning to let go of what no longer serves our path. Epictetus used to say that true freedom comes from within. When we detach ourselves from external things we can't control, we find peace. And this peace is the first step toward living more lightly. Often we suffer because we insist on holding on to something that should already be let go. A relationship that no longer works, a suffocating job, or even a fixed idea of how life should be. This attachment prolongs suffering and prevents us from moving forward. For example, imagine someone clinging to the expectation of immediate success in a personal project. When things don't go as planned, the disappointment can be devastating. But what if that person accepted that not everything depends on them and that failure is part of the process? The emotional weight would drastically decrease. Practicing detachment starts with awareness of what truly matters. Make a list of the things occupying your mind and ask yourself, does this still serve me? Is it aligned with who I am and who I want to become? If the answer is no, it might be time to let it go. A helpful exercise is to imagine your life without what you value so much. Whether it's an object, a goal, or even a person. This helps you realize that, deep down, nothing is permanent, and this impermanence creates space for the new to emerge. Another important point is understanding that detachment doesn't mean loss but gain. When we let go of something that holds us back, we create space for better things to enter our lives. Think of it like decluttering a house. To welcome new furniture, we need to get rid of the old pieces we no longer use. Books like The Art of Happiness, inspired by Stoic philosophy, can help reinforce this concept and bring clarity to those seeking to practice detachment in a practical way. Ultimately, detachment is a daily choice, a conscious decision not to cling to what was or what could have been, but to fully live in the present. By accepting that everything changes and that holding on to what should already be released only prolongs suffering, we begin to experience true freedom. But how do we focus on the present and turn our actions into meaningful change? This question brings us to the next point: the power of the present. The present is the only moment that truly exists. The past is gone, and the future hasn't arrived yet. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, constantly remind us of this simple but powerful truth. When we focus on the now, we set aside worries about what happened or what might happen. This practice not only eases our minds but also allows us to act more intentionally and effectively, creating real changes in our lives. Living in the present means being fully present in each moment, without distractions. How many times have you been physically in one place but mentally stuck in thoughts about yesterday or tomorrow? This habit drains our energy and prevents us from enjoying what we have right now. For example, imagine someone in an important meeting, but their mind is occupied with worries about the future. They'll likely miss crucial details that could help them make better decisions in that moment. To practice focusing on the present, start with small daily actions. During a conversation, for example, concentrate on the other person's words instead of thinking about what you'll say next. Or while savoring a meal, pay attention to the flavors, textures, and aromas instead of looking at your phone. These seemingly simple moments train your mind to be more present in larger situations. Books like The Weight of the Past, inspired by Stoic philosophy, can be great guides for those who want to deepen this practice. Another useful exercise is setting aside a few minutes each day for meditation or reflection. Sit in silence, close your eyes, and focus solely on your breathing. Whenever your mind starts to wander to the past or future, gently bring it back to the present moment. Over time, this habit strengthens your ability to focus on the now and reduces the suffering caused by unnecessary thoughts. Remember, the present is where life truly happens. Ultimately, the present is the only space where we can act and create meaningful change. By focusing on the here and now, we begin to live more fully and intentionally. But how do we take the next practical step and turn these reflections into concrete actions? This question brings us to the next point: the importance of starting where we are and acting consistently. Don't wait for the perfect moment to start changing, it will never come. The Stoics, like Epictetus, teach us that action is the true engine of transformation. If you want to grow, learn, or overcome challenges, the first step is simply to start where you are, with what you have. No matter how small your initial action, the important thing is to take that step. After all, big changes are built from small, consistent choices. Often, we delay our plans due to a lack of resources, but all we really need is to take the first step. For example, imagine someone who wants to start exercising but thinks they need an expensive gym membership or special clothes. In reality, all it takes is putting on sneakers and walking around the block. This small beginning can trigger significant change over time. To put this into practice, set realistic goals and break them into smaller steps. For example, if your goal is to read more books on Stoic philosophy, start with just 5 pages a day. It seems small, but by the end of the month you'll have read hundreds of pages. The secret lies in consistency, not intensity. Also, remember to celebrate each small victory. This reinforces your motivation and keeps you on track. Another important point is not to worry about doing everything perfectly. Perfectionism is often an excuse to procrastinate. Instead, focus on progress, not perfection. If you make mistakes along the way, that's okay, they're part of the learning process. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, we shouldn't fear mistakes, but rather learn from them. This mindset helps keep the focus on the actions that truly matter. Finally, remember that the next step doesn't need to be grand, it just needs to exist. Every action you take today plants a seed for the future. And those small seeds, over time, grow into something extraordinary. But how do we apply all these Stoic lessons in a practical and transformative way? This question brings us to the conclusion, where we'll reflect on how to use these principles to truly change your life. We've reached the end of this exploration of Stoic lessons, but the most important part is yet to come. How will you apply these principles in your life? Reflect on this. Have you been facing your adversities with resilience, or have you been letting negative thoughts bring you down? Remember, pain, challenges, and discomfort are inevitable, but suffering is a choice. And that choice is in your hands. Imagine what it would be like to live with more control over your reactions, detachment from what doesn't matter, and focus on the present. What transformations could you create by reinterpreting your personal stories and acting with small, consistent steps? These aren't just beautiful ideas. They're practical tools that can change your life if you decide to put them into practice. As Marcus Aurelius taught us, life is what our actions make of it. So what will your next action be? If this content inspired you to rethink your choices and seek growth, don't stop here. Keep exploring Stoicism and other philosophies that promote wisdom and inner strength. Read books like Meditations by Marcus Aurelius or The Stoic Guide by Ryan Holiday to deepen your knowledge. And remember, the journey of personal transformation is continuous, and every day is a new opportunity to evolve. Want to keep receiving powerful insights like this? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to follow more content that will help you think better, act with more clarity, and live with purpose. Together, we can build a more meaningful life aligned with our values. After all, the next step starts now, and it depends on you.